Welcome back to another episode of Whiteboard Wednesday. I'm Nick Williams, and today we're going to be talking about some fundamental concepts that are so vital to what you're doing in your operations. And we're going to be talking about the differences between marketing, advertising, and branding. And as I was coming up with this content, it's really stemmed from the fact that some people would call this basic, or there would be some sort of negative connotation with reviewing some of these basic core concepts. But it's so incredibly vital to understand these concepts because they're going to be the underlying drivers for everything that you're doing in your organization. Now, how I want to actually talk about this, because you have people who actually describe marketing, advertising, and branding. They'll use a pyramid, and that's not necessarily how you should be thinking about it. So what we're really going to do is we're going to just, at a very high level, we're going to talk about these three concepts in the form of analogy. And if you were looking at the differences between marketing, advertising, and branding, what I want you to do first of all is just take 30 seconds, 60 seconds, pen and paper. If you're listening, jot it down, make a note, think in your head. Just take a couple seconds. I want you to think about what the difference is. Can you actually say the difference in 10 seconds or less, eloquently in one sentence? What is marketing? What is advertising? What is branding? Are they the same thing? Are they interchangeable? What are the differences? How do you draw a contrast between them? So take that right now. And let's jump into the analogy. So rather than think about them as marketing, just the jargon, let's remove the jargon. Let's look at the human body. If you were to describe these three terms and use the analogy of the human body, marketing would actually be your body itself. So when you think about marketing, marketing is the process, or it is the system in which you are trading your idea to someone, to a willing third party who is interested. And it's as simple as that. Marketing is not a verb. It's a gerund, technically. Marketing is not a verb. It's a gerund, G-E-R-U-N-D. Marketing stems from the root word market. And you think about that's the quintessential market. When you think of the word market, if you've ever been to any other country, in the United States, we don't have a ton of markets anymore, but you think of a flea market, if that's easier. That's a place where you trade a good or service to someone else. Marketing is a gerund. It's not a participle. It's not a verb. So marketing is just the concept or the system in which you're trading your goods or ideas. That's very important because when you think about your marketing and you put it in context of what someone else wants, you then have to be positioning your goods or services in the context of the consumer needs, their pain points, their desires. It puts the focus back on the consumer. So the inherent nature of marketing is customer centric, which a lot of people forget. We tend to do marketing based on what we want to do as business owners, as directors, as CEOs, CMOs. And in fact, it doesn't matter. Who cares what you want to do? It has everything to do with what your customer wants, because you're going to market. You're going to trade something for what they want. Now, that basic explanation does touch on the roots of a customer-centric marketing focus, which every marketing system should be. So it's a system or process in which you're exchanging your goods or service with someone else. That's it. It's not a verb. It's a gerund. It is the process in which you are engaging in. So marketing is always happening. Your body exists at all times. Now, you could have poor marketing. You could have incredibly good marketing. There are basic components, fundamental components that make up what makes something good marketing or bad marketing. Now, that's going to come down to things like advertising. Advertising is not interchangeable with the word marketing. Advertising is what you say. It comes from the Latin word advertere. And advertere, to turn someone's attention. So think of, whereas marketing is just the system which exists in perpetuity. You could have marketing activities that are weak or strong or just essentially, flat. You're not doing anything. Then your marketing just consists of your branding, which we'll get to next. But your marketing, your advertising is what you are telling, you're outwardly expressing to turn attention, to change someone's mind. So anytime you are exerting, saying, telling, persuading, you are actually advertising. Now, you can have paid advertisement, you could have organic, you could have free. So there's a lot of different types of advertising, but telling the story, the actual telling, that is the verb. That is the thing you're actually doing, and that's advertising. So when you think about running Facebook ads, that's advertising. But the story in which you tell for your brand, Now that's going to be something a little bit different. What's actually making up that story, what's actually in the value proposition, that's your branding. That's the DNA, back to the human body. So if advertising are the words that are coming out of your mouth, the DNA, the structure of who you are, your identity, that's your brand. Branding has to exist. It has to make up your whatever your marketing is, and it should infiltrate your advertising. Advertising is a subset of marketing. And these are tactical choices you can be making. So as you think about it, all three of these things exist on their own. All three of these things should be playing together. And that is how you make a really good, that your entire marketing system is best when your branding and your advertising are in line. Now you can have marketing without branding and advertising. It won't be very good. But that's how you tell the difference between good marketing and bad marketing. So we have to stop using these words interchangeably because they're not. So use this analogy. You can have a body and you can have a pretty crappy personality. You could say no words. You'd just be a really boring person. You'd have a really boring brand, a really boring website. No one would buy you. Or you could be the life of the party. You could have a really good backstory. Now think about the most important people in your life. Think about the most interesting people in your life. Aren't they the most magnetic because they've got the best story? The story is your branding. How you tell the story is your marketing. Are you Snapchatting everyone? Are you going out there? Are you texting everyone and constantly telling people about your life? Are you vlogging? And then the vehicle in which you express these ideas, that's your advertising. That's the vehicle. That's the outward expression. That's what you're saying to change someone's minds, to tell someone that story and reposition whatever your identity is. That's the advertising. So keep this in mind as you're doing this, and we'll do a quick test, and we'll see now that you've seen all this, we'll see how good you've grasped this concept.
Okay, let's take a quick look at this quiz. Now, this quiz is going to cover off 3 of the concepts we just talked about. So take a look and identify which of the 3 concepts we talked about, marketing, advertising, or branding, do these 1, 2, and 3 fall in. So Google Ads, is that an example of marketing, advertising, or branding? That is actually an example of advertising. That is a process in which we are trying to tell someone about our brand, our service, our product, whatever the case may be. We're trying to convince people. We're trying to turn attention to, like we talked about, advertare. That's the explicit action of doing something, telling about your product, about your company. So look at number 2. Is that an example of marketing? That is the Apple icon. Is that an example of marketing, advertising, or branding? That is an example of branding. The Apple icon is embedded in the very nature of who Apple is as a company and their identity. So that is an example of branding. Then we look at the third question, and that's more of the flywheel. So more of a system in which we're looking at, this is a basic core concept of how we actually build strategies for companies. So you've got what this is describing as a paid ad and blogs. They filter into your website. And now that you've got eyeballs, you've got these consumers, you've qualified them, got them to your website, you've tailored your content accordingly, and now you get them on a consult call where you will do some form of advisory, and then you ultimately book them. So this flywheel is an example of marketing. It's marketing because it's the system in which you are taking your product or service or good to market and exchanging that with willing buyers. So your marketing encompasses branding and advertising in this situation.
Thanks for checking that content out, guys. I really appreciate it. Subscribe if you're watching, and if you're listening, go ahead and continue to download the Actionable Audio Serious Profit for Serious Marketers. The YouTube channel, make sure to hit the bell if we go live, or you can make sure to be notified of any other content drops. We are pushing content heavily. We're talking about this heavily, especially going into the summer months. This is a big year, 2019, for marketing, and we're going to commit to about 2 videos a week. So make sure to hit the bell notification, because we are going to be making that content, and we will see you guys soon. We will make some content for Mailbag Monday and Funnel Friday, but in the very least, if you like this content, we'll see you back next Wednesday for another episode of Whiteboard Wednesday. Thanks, guys, and we'll talk soon.